Architectural Outcast.
This video is a continuation of my exploration of how the mysterious stranger has been depicted in cinema over the years. Today's story is something a little different. We get to see things from the mysterious stranger's perspective. And the problem that he's expected to solve? Nothing less than the complete collapse of human civilization. We're talking H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, 1960 version. This version of The Time Machine is often presented as a children's movie. Minimal violence, very cheesy special effects, and a simple, easy to understand story. But the more you dig into it, the more you will realize it's actually asking some pretty heavy questions. And like all great science fiction, it leaves you asking more questions than it answers. Our story begins in the first week of January in the year 1900. 4 men are waiting for their eccentric inventor friend to arrive. He seems to be obsessed with time, and he's late, and they're annoyed. So they start dinner without him, when suddenly in staggers their friend, disheveled, bloody, clearly distraught. After shoveling some food, downing some wine, he starts to tell his story. We go back a week, and George, the inventor, has called his friends together to announce his latest invention. He claims to have a machine that will allow him to travel through time. They ain't buying what he's selling, even after he makes his working model disappear, claiming it's moving through time. They agree to meet a week later and storm out. George decides now's a good time as any, gets on his time machine, and heads off to the future. George's first stop is 1917, where he learns about World War I. He meets the son of one of his friends and learns that his friend died in the trenches. His second stop is the 1960s. When he gets off his machine, he's confronted by wailing sirens and people in a panic, fleeing into bomb shelters. He encounters the now elderly son of his former friend, and he learns about nuclear weapons. He races back to his machine and heads off into the future just as a nuclear blast destroys London. George's machine is now buried under tons of rock. He has to go millennia into the future waiting for the rock to erode. When he's finally able to stop his machine and get off, he discovers the earth has become a paradise. Food is in abundance, fruits, vegetables as far as the eye can see. And the people that George encounters, they're healthy, young, and attractive. But the first sign that all is not well in this world is when George sees a woman start to drown. People literally inches away just sit and watch, confused and indifferent. And when George rescues her, they just get up and walk off. And when George tries to comfort her, talk to her, she just gets up and walks off as well. Come to find out, it's dinner time. George learns that these people are known as the Eloi. They are naive to the point of being simple-minded, childlike, and they've lost some of the most basic concepts, like self-preservation. All of the Eloi's needs, food, drink, clothing, and shelter, are provided by a mysterious group called the Morlocks, a group that the Eloi are also terrified of. With the help of Weena, the woman that he'd rescued, George was able to find some old working technology, where he learned that after a devastating war, the earth had been contaminated. Humanity chose to split into 2 groups. One group was going to take their chances on the surface, and the other group chose to go underground. The Eloi were the descendants of those who stayed on the surface. The Morlocks were those who'd gone underground. Suddenly, air raid sirens begin to wail. The Eloi, as if in a trance, begin to gather, and then they head down into underground caverns. Once the wailing stops, those left on the surface just turn and wander off as if nothing had ever happened. Because Weena was one of the Eloi who had gone underground, George decides to break into the realm of the Morlocks, where he discovers their secret. The reason why the Morlocks have been taking care of the Eloi, providing them with all they need, they've been raising them like cattle. They're just livestock. They're eating people! Oh, sorry, wrong movie. George starts a rebellion. With the help of Weena and one of the other Eloi men, he breaks everybody free. They escape, and in the process, destroy the Morlock's lair. When George gets on his machine to head back to the past, he's attacked by the few surviving Morlocks. He escapes, and arrives just in time to crash his friend's dinner party, where he tells his fantastic tale. They don't believe a word of it. They laugh him off and leave. All except one. He returns to check on George, and arrives just in time to see George head back to the future. Wrong movie again. And then we're left with one last question. The friend and George's housekeeper discover that George had left taking 3 books with him. 3 books to rebuild civilization. Seeing as how my background is in architecture and design, I tend to notice architecture and design in movies. Go figure, right? The building that the Eloi live in is what I would call futuristic modern. It's actually really well done and pretty cool. And that's coming from somebody who's no fan of modernism. The design of the time machine itself is really well done as well. Clean, simple, has an Edwardian steampunk vibe that I really like. And narratively, they were also very smart. They didn't try to over-explain things, justify things. It works. That's all you need to know. I noticed a trend a while back online. Some people who didn't like the politics of other people started calling them Morlocks. It's like, okay, I guess you're calling them cannibalistic troglodytes? Well, if that works for you, go ahead. But I had to laugh when those same people started referring to themselves as Eloi. That's not the own you think it is. You clearly aren't familiar with the work of H.G. Wells. There's an ongoing debate within the philosophy world if the Eloi are still sentient, still have a sense of self, because clearly they've lost the ideas of compassion, empathy, self-sacrifice, and even self-preservation. I would argue that the Eloi are still sentient. They've just been denied these concepts for so long, they've forgotten about their existence. But the moment George starts interacting with the Eloi, their behaviors start to change. First Weena and then others start displaying empathy, compassion, self-sacrifice, and self-preservation. It's a close-run thing, though. They are at risk of losing sentience, maybe within generations. The Morlocks are also at risk of losing their sentience. They're in the ruins of an older civilization, one that they no longer have the ability to maintain and repair. It's decaying all around them. With Earth as a paradise and food in abundance, the Morlocks no longer had a need to eat the Eloi. They did so because it was easy. They could put their brain in neutral and coast. Both the Morlocks and the Eloi doomed humanity because they took the easy way out. Might be a lesson in there somewhere. So no. Do not associate yourself with either group. The movie leaves us with one last question. What 3 books should be used to rebuild society? I'm going to break the rules and argue for a set of books, because I think a very compelling case could be made for the 11th edition of Encyclopedia Britannica, printed in 1910. You'd have all the culture, history, philosophy, theology that you could ever want. Science and technology, there's the foundation for everything we've built today. And you have the benefit of none of the horrors of the 20th century. So I think it would be a perfect choice. So what do you all think? What 3 books, or 1 series, I did it, so fair is fair, that you would choose if you had to rebuild society? At any rate, I hope I've given you all something to think about, and until next time, you all be safe. If you're still here, I really appreciate it. And while you're at it, why don't you like the video and subscribe to the channel?
Please like and subscribe. Please leave a comment.